And I am so honored tonight to be able to show you guys The Sea of Shadows. The Sea of Shadows won the Best Audience Award at Sundance. And it's a film where we can make a really big difference in solving the species extinction. This is one of the most powerful films I've ever seen. And I would like to invite up Andrea. Where are you? There you are. This man has sacrificed his life to try to save species with ivory trade, with elephants and rhinos. And he's the subject, basically, of Sea of Shadows, trying to prevent the extinction of vaquitas. And when you see this film, you'll see what he does. He just gives his whole heart, soul, and life into trying to do exactly this. And we can help him. I don't know that I need to go into details. He has 30 years of experience in conservation projects. He's been working for over 17 years as an international consultant to companies and government agencies on high-end security technologies and services. He's really connected to the best way of being powerfully quiet and making the best change. So, Andrea, I'm honored to have you here tonight. What I like to do every once in a while is ask for a special story that nobody ever has heard of. And I know that you've gone through so much with this film. Is there one story that hasn't been told that our special audience can learn from you that happened to you during your efforts in trying to save the vaquitas?
Wow, it really a lot happened, and we have been working on this project for 3 years. They have been filming with us for maybe 10 months. I think they shot maybe 500 hours, and our part in the film is maybe half an hour. So you can imagine how much stuff they filmed, and it never happened. I mean, sorry, never. You will never see it. I think that we went through a lot of. So if there is one thing that you will not probably notice in the film is the work behind our work, meaning we do intelligence work in a very similar way that intelligence agencies do to fight other global threats like narco-trafficking, terrorism, organized crime. My right arm is here, Mark Davis, 30 years with the FBI. We have former CIA. So in the film, you see us meeting one guy and then jumping to another meeting, and you don't understand that maybe there is a year of work just to get to the second meeting. The way we work is with our undercover teams, we get very, very close to criminals and traffickers and kingpins. We become friends. We extract a lot of information. We have undercover teams trained to use videos and audio undercover. So we go through a lot of stuff that you will not see in the film, unfortunately. That's why we are now working on a new documentary and also on a scripted TV series. But with Mark, it's a pity he's not in the film, but we met such incredible, weird, dangerous characters in Mexico. Some of them are Mexican former cartels and narco-trafficking. Some others are straight from Chinese mafia, and our work is to become friends with them. So you create very weird situations of, sharing a bottle of wine with people that you really don't want to even, so we have plenty of these anecdotes. The problem is that for filmmakers is not always easy to work with us because they cannot be. They tell me, no, don't worry, we'll be like a fly on the wall, but it's not like that. And we are, and to the point that towards the end of the film, you will see me going around, and it was so impossible to get rid of the filmmakers that I had to invent a story for myself. So I told everyone that I was an Italian journalist writing for a magazine about fishing. So all of a sudden I became very popular and everyone wanted to talk to me. So like hiding in plain sight. That you don't see it in the film, but that's how we did certain things, because you know, when you have 3 cameramen, 1 audio, TV production, it becomes a circus. So you have to come up with another solution to extract information. So, you know, I hope you will understand a little bit of what we do. My organization, Earth League International, is structured as a small intelligence agency. So we have team on the grounds, undercover Asian operatives, Chinese and Taiwanese. We have a bunch of great crime analysts back home going through all the data and the information we bring from the field. We have 2 exceptional cyber experts doing a lot of work on the deep web. And all together, we try to put together confidential reports that then we share with law enforcement to help them doing a better job. So right now, we are sharing about confidential information with around a dozen law enforcement agencies around the world, in Mexico, US, Thailand, and we help them to fight environmental crime in a more concrete way. Behind the scenes, there is another NGO in the film, Sea Shepherd. It's a good friend of ours, and Paul Watson. So at the end of the film, you will remember Sea Shepherd, but not us. And the reason is because we cannot go around with the flag or with the logo. We are completely undercover. We are ghosts. So that's the strength of our work, and it's also the challenger because sometimes we are too invisible for fundraising, especially. So enjoy.
So I think all of us here want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you, Andrea, for creating this magnificent film.
Very welcome.
You're getting a standing ovation. You're getting a standing ovation from people that are powerful. Can you guys hear me here? So normally what I do with films that are not like this is to say, thank you so much for directing this film. I give a background normally about somebody, but usually it's nobody like you. I want to do you justice, though. Richard Ladkani has directed and has been a cinematographer for a very long time. And he's been involved with not just Sea of Shadows, but also, if you're a FiReFilms member, you've seen The Ivory Game. We've been in very close touch with The Ivory Game. I don't think that you even know that. He and his wife live in Austria, and he makes films that are about the most important things that are happening in this world. Andrea, who we all love and know already, is here with me now, and we're going to do Q&A. And let's start with, where is, do we have mics? Okay, we don't have mics. I think before we start the Q&A, what we should probably do is to say, there are how many vaquitas left? 18? 17?
Nobody knows exactly. Right now they are starting a new count of vaquitas, and there will be somewhere between, they say there's somewhere between 6 and 22. They have seen 6 in August. Okay. That's why they come up with 6. But basically, the acoustic monitoring system that they have in place tells them there could be as many as 22. They're sending 2 or 3 ships down there right now to start another search mission and to establish how many there truly are. But the best estimate is still around 15. So
Okay.
Yeah, we're still there, and there's still hope. Of course.
Okay, so what we want to know now is how can we make sure that this group of people right here helps to preserve the species? What can we do to make sure that this species is not extinct?
Well, maybe let's start with what has already happened since the film launched at Sundance, where we won the Audience Award. So the big impact that we wanted to have is we wanted to have the government understand that the world cares about the vaquita. And we wanted to also let them know that the Mexicans, once the movie is released in Mexico, which just happened a month ago, they will care about the vaquita. They will want to preserve it and save it. And so it will be up to you to do your job and enforce the law and, you know, like solve this problem. For us, the best thing we can do with the film is apply pressure, international pressure. We have had a huge impact campaign run with the film. So we have shown the film, for example, at the United Nations headquarters, in New York, in Geneva twice, in Vienna. And the UN has actually applied big pressure on Mexico just in August when we were screening at CITES, which is the International Convention of Wildlife Trade, in Geneva at the United Nations. They, at the end of that session, threatened Mexico with a massive trade embargo if they do not protect the vaquita and if they do not save the vaquita. And that embargo will happen, and they have to report back to the United Nations in November, and then again in June with a status update on where they are with the protection. And if they don't comply, if they're not convincing the international community that they're doing everything they can, then a trade embargo will hit, which is really scaring the Mexicans in a big way. But very, very important are organizations like Earth League International, Andrea here, a real hero, I think, you know, people who risk their lives going onto the front lines and actually finding out how is this whole system, the illegal trade, how is it really working, how is it functioning. They were the first to expose that the Chinese are actually behind this entire trade. Not the Chinese in China so much, but the Chinese Mexicans who live in Tijuana, so close to where you are right now. I'm in Vienna, by the way, very far away, so good morning. I just had my coffee, just in case people wonder why I'm on Skype. But the thing is that the Chinese are responsible for fueling this entire killing, you know, the killing of the Sea of Cortez, not only of the vaquita. We keep talking about the vaquita. The vaquita is mainly the symbol of this, you know, of what is going on down there. They are slaughtering whales and dolphins and sharks and sea lions and seabirds. Everything that swims in that beautiful ocean is getting decimated, killed. And if the vaquita goes extinct, people have to understand that, then the entire international community will retreat. You know, Sea Shepherd, the NGOs, they will say we lost the battle and we will be, okay, we'll be moving on to the next battle, but they will leave the area to the cartel to completely take over, and they're going to go for those totoabas and kill all life in the Sea of Cortez. It will be a decimation, a killing field with no one watching. This is why the vaquita is such an important symbol, because it stands for all life. So when you ask me what can you do, I think organizations like Earth League International need support because they need to double up on their investigations. Those investigations are very sensitive, they are difficult, and they are expensive to execute so that nobody dies, I would say, because it's quite dangerous to operate down there. So these are the people, the organizations that need help. Sea Shepherd will be on the front line this year with 3 ships. They are gearing up for battle as well. Obviously, that, you know, needs funding as well. But you know, on top of that, we need more pressure. So if anybody has means to talk to media or press or use social media through their companies, through their network, people need to understand that the community, the world community cares. So they need to put this into the spotlight wherever they can, support the people who are on the front lines risking their lives to make a difference. And this is how I think we can do, what we can.
Okay, so what I'd like to ask you to do is to send me personally who people should write to or contribute to, and I will send this out to
I
our
can
members.
publicly say we have a petition on change.org. If you go for Save the Vaquita and the Sea of Cortez on change.org, we have a petition. We're now nearing 100,000 signatures, and every signature automatically sends a whole action plan to the current Minister of Environment in Mexico. So this is helpful already. But I don't know if we're ending up in his spam box already, because he's closely received up to 100,000 emails from the world community. But I think it matters. It shows that we all care.
So do you all understand what that means to be active? I mean, did that make sense to you? Could you do something with what you just heard, or do you need some more information? Was that clear? That was clear. Okay. And I think what I heard also is that Andrea, he's the frontline fighter. He's the warrior, right? And we need to totally support your work. He's put his life on the line for so many issues, and this is just like one really, really critical issue. Is let's FiRe attendees, the powerful group of us, save the extinction of this species. We can do it. Let's just do it. Okay, I've got a question back here.
Yes, sir. Question about Mexico. Suppose that the pressure that you're asking to put on Mexico is totally successful. Who in Mexico will take action? How will you know if they have responded properly, and how will you verify whatever measures they have taken? That's question one. Question two is, right now, the same folk from Mexico have completely taken over because of bribery and other things from China, the entire geoduck trade from the Sea of Cortez. This is something that they buy from fishermen at $1 a pound and sell it for $100 a pound in Shanghai. It's a long-necked clam. Do you have any plans to go beyond Vaquita to take a look at other Chinese cartel operations that are threatening ocean life in the Sea of Cortez?
Who's the question for?
I can give over to Andrea in a moment. Maybe I can address the first question a little bit. There is already action being taken right now. We're quite encouraged by latest developments that the president has started talking about the Vaquita very recently. He's actually in the region right now, not in San Felipe, but he's close by near Tijuana, and he's talking about San Felipe, the fishermen, and the Vaquita for the first time. Also, the new governor, the incoming governor of Baja California, has ordered about 2 weeks ago, and exactly 2 weeks after we released our movie, he said he will order 600 troops to the area. Those will be soldiers, observers, monitors, Mexican scientists, and law enforcement officials who can actually make arrests from Profepa, which is the Mexican version of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which is fantastic because they are taking it seriously, and they are moving people into the area who can actually enforce the law. Now, what people like Eli, Earth League International can do is monitor on the ground independently if these people are just there for show or if they're actually doing their job, because that is critical. We have seen it before, all the soldiers in the area, and you have seen it in the film, they pretend to be doing a good job, but when you look closely, they are actually all paid off and somehow do not do their job. The presence alone does not solve this. So we need people who go in and verify what is actually happening. Is the cartel still operating? Are they selling to the Chinese? Is the trade alive? And this is where organizations like Andrea's organization, who's, by the way, a big team, he stands there as the front man because all the others need to be in the shadows and can never be exposed publicly because that would threaten, their life. So, there's a big team going in, and very soon, and they will be verifying what is going on. So this is how we will see progress. But maybe, Andrea, you should elaborate.
Yeah, getting to the second question, which is related to this one. Whenever we can, we always try not to focus on specific illegal wildlife products or illegal or specific species, because it's much more effective to focus on specific people who are actually trafficking everything. So our Chinese target in Mexico for totoaba are actually big. Also, they're into abalone, they're into seahorses. At the same time, they're also big into money laundering, human smuggling, and fake passports. And we always try, wherever we go, we always try to collect intelligence, evidence on other kind of crimes. When we ask a government, we try to ask a government to take out certain people, we don't care how. If you prefer to use the anti-money laundering law, go for it. Very often that's the case, actually. They are stronger than the environmental crime. So right now we are fundraising to be able to send another team from November, December, all the way to March to do exactly what Richard said. So to monitor, first of all, if what the Mexican government is saying is true, they are really doing, because one thing is to send 600 people there, and another thing is to seeing these 600 people working. It's a completely different thing. And the second is we need to keep applying pressure also with investigative action on the Chinese community in Mexico. They are the key of everything. They are placing orders. Just a curiosity, it's a very important fact. When earlier this year there was this big bust in China, the Chinese authorities arrested 16, 20 people, millions of dollars of totoaba. The price of totoaba in Baja California crashed to less than half within days, because certain key people, certain key Chinese traffickers got scared and stopped placing orders. So these are the pressure points. So for us, it's critical to be able, again, from November to redeploy our ghost team, I call them, because nobody knows when they are there, who they are. This is how they work. And this is the only way to understand if the Mexican government really means it, or it's just a show.
Questions? Hold on.
Ty Carlson with Pattern Computer. It seems there's a clear gap between the special forces of the Mexican law enforcement and anything that's local, everything that's been corrupted. It would seem that campaigns that we might take on as far as email and things like that would probably be swept under the carpet because nobody's accountable. I see that you're holding the government, especially at what level of government, should be held accountable for actually enforcing this, and then going down to the level and exposing the people who are not carrying out the orders, and exposing the municipal police chiefs that are being bought off, and then going back in the media and continually harping at who is not completing the work that's expected. It seems to me that is the only thing that they're responding to, is the political embarrassment, and then economic forces that saying, no tourism in San Felipe, no tourism in Mexico. It's a dangerous place. They do not actually hold the law. You were very clearly at risk because those policemen could easily have taken you out if the orders were given by Oscar. So there is a total lack of law enforcement. So I'm thinking that we need to move at levels that can affect change, and that has to be done from the top level, which you did approach, and I thought that was excellent, and hold them accountable. That admiral, that the org chart that you had with to take that to the admiral and say, this is something that's very public, And it's like, here are the individuals that need to be accountable for that. What action has been taken? What is the crime that you are associating with them? And then have they been punished? Because in the case of China, I suspect that as long as it's in the public eye, they will do something. As soon as it's off the radar and they're not held accountable, they move on. So I think there needs to be some, and I really love what you're doing, and I have huge respect for you, because I'm very concerned that next time they're going to up their game if they sense you're in town. That they will actually get much more intelligent about how they find out where you're at and how you're acting. Because the first time, they're not wise to it. The second time, I think the game gets much more dangerous, and I'm very concerned about that. But I think without economic impacts and accountability of the law enforcement and just continually harping on that, I don't see that typical American type strategies of going after the officials and things like that, it's not going to matter. The game's different.
It's a multi-pronged approach. Our part is just intelligence providers, okay? And this is what intelligence agencies should do. Actually, what I'm trying to do is, to create the first intelligence agency for the planet. This is my obsession, this is my vision. So our work is to provide facts, to provide evidence. It's very true what you said about local police. They're all paid off. That's why the effort is going, it's a top-down effort. As long as they don't send federal police or police from Mexico City, the locals are all bought. It's not in the film, but Oscar Parra, a couple of years ago, if I remember well, paid $200,000 to get his brother out of jail successfully. And then he paid $100,000 to remove the police commissioner in San Felipe successfully. So locally, they are all bought. We have our informants even said that the police cars are used to transport to Tuaba. So the game is from the top, of course. So that's why, as Richard said, the role of the president is key. Without him, it's a lost cause, of course. And the way we hold accountable governments, our organization, is with facts. So we don't like rumors. We don't like, I heard that. We also don't, you will never hear me talking in a very emphatic way, making noise. I leave it to other organizations. I go for facts. And then I show the facts to the governments. I show what's happening under their nose, also other crimes. I make them aware that there's also a media, there's also a film. By the way, the same confidential material, exactly the same we share with the US authorities, the FBI, US Homeland Security, State Department, Chinese officials. So it's not just the Mexican. And we tell them, hey, just for you to know, I'm not sharing only with you. I respect you, I'm here to help you, but I'm not stupid. So that's our part. But then I agree with you, then there is the regular sending stuff only, they don't care. I don't know, Richard, you want to help?
Yeah. Something? Well, I want to say that our strategy so far has been working, and I think we just have to keep pushing in that direction. We have this film which is educating the Mexican people in general around Mexico. We are in 85 different cities in Mexico playing the movie about the vaquita. Since we launched, we have had the biggest media response on a documentary ever launched in Mexico. We had 40 news reports on the film, 15 on television. So we were all over the country, and they are really talking about this issue, which has caught the government's attention. The governor of Baja California, just a week ago, had a meeting with Carlos Loret de Mola, the incoming governor. He will take office November 4th. And he said, I'm gonna be the new sheriff in town. I'm gonna send in the troops, and I want this film shown in Mexicali and Tijuana and host you there. So he's inviting me and Carlos Loret de Mola to host the film to the people there, so we can find a solution for the fishermen together and have a good discussion about this thing. Now, obviously, we are pushing the right buttons because he's best friends with the president, and the president is now scheduled. Actually, I was wrong. I read 2 days ago that he's not there yet. He's arriving October 12th in the area, and specifically in the Mexican media, he's talking about San Felipe, taking a big interest there on what's going on, how we can solve the problems for the fishermen so that they can go out and fish again. what can we do about the totoaba, of course, and the trade, and what can we do to preserve and protect the vaquita. It's for the first time he's talking about it since taking office in December. He has never even mentioned the word vaquita. So this is what we need. But on top of that, without pressure from our end, especially his investigation, sending people in to verify that it's not just show. You know, these are politicians. All they want to be is re-elected next time, you know, people go to the vote. So we need to make sure that they're being held accountable, and the only way to do that is by getting the facts from the front lines and understanding, is the trade still alive? Is it going on? Are they just pretending to be there? Or, you know, are they actually arresting people and, you know, stopping the Chinese from exporting the totoaba to China? And only, I think, Earth League International is qualified right now to do that job. It is, you know, it's difficult, it's dangerous and expensive, you know, to keep people safe. But I think if we want to achieve what we want, you know, to save the Sea of Cortez and the vaquita, they need to go in and do the job. And also, of course, I don't think it's a bad idea that they know that there's independent, you know, investigators in the area. That's why we're publicly talking about it, so that they expect it. So they better do their job, or we'll hold them accountable. And the best pressure point we have is the United Nations trade embargo. You know, they have to report back to the UN in November. What are they doing? And then again in June, what are the results of their entire campaign? And if it's not convincing, and Andrea's facts will play a big role. You know, we know the people at the UN. We have been their guests many times. Yvonne Guerrero, the Secretary General, is a friend of ours. So, you know, we will share information. And if they're not convinced that this is really happening, that they're really doing their job and protecting people, we'll let them know, and there will be consequences.
I've had one critical thought that I have is, I feel like we're talking like we have time, and we don't have any time. There's no time. These are almost extinct. I feel like there should be a multi-pronged approach where obviously they're so sensitive that we can't put them with our hands in an enclosure in the ocean and try to save. They die. They're so sensitive. I feel like we need to do exactly what you're saying, exactly what you're working for, but at the same time trying to preserve the species. We need to try to get a population growing outside of this issue. Is that possible?
The only way vaquitas can be saved is by removing the nets and leaving them alone. They have babies. We have seen them with babies. The 6 vaquitas that have been seen, 2 of them were young little vaquitas, newborns. So they are still, you know, the population is healthy and growing. The only problem are those ghost nets. And they will keep going in as long as the cartel controls the area, and as long as the Chinese uphold the trafficking of totoaba swim bladders, and demand is there and the price is there, they will keep going in. So I don't think any of us are pretending we have time. We are pushing, and we have been every day since we launched that film. We have been pushing publicly, globally, around the world. We've played at more than 100 festivals, you know, but most critical are the diplomatic screenings, you know, the UN screenings. We have screened the film at the State Department in Washington, D.C. We've gone to Mexico and shown it at the Mexican Senate. We've been talking to senators and ministers. You know, we have been on the media there, everywhere. So we are pushing. But, you know.
And I want to add also that now with the new screenings in Tijuana, Mexicali, it's a funny thing will happen. The Chinese will see themselves for the first time. They don't know they are in the film. But for the first time, they will think, holy fuck, holy cow, that was me. That is, wow, now I got stuck. So they will start processing, and they will start feeling the pressure. It's all about pressure. When we met the federal police, I met them in Mexico City, share all the info, share all the intel, and I told them, listen, pay a visit to these people. You know exactly who they are, the Chinese. You don't have necessarily to arrest them. Just look into their eyes and tell them, we know. And they have, unlike the narco traffickers, the Chinese have a lot to lose because they are not gangsters. They have a lot of legit businesses, supermarket, hotels, and stuff. So there are a lot to lose. Look into their eyes. Come with the IRS and say, you want to stop or not? That's the first step. So we are hoping that they will do it in the next 2 months, and because they are the key. They have, you remove the Chinese in Mexico, and the supply chain will collapse, because nobody's placing orders anymore. But they have to do it, of course. It doesn't happen by itself.
Do we have any more questions?
On the catching of these things, what are you doing with that? Can you increase that? I mean, there's no market if you don't catch the fish.
Sorry, didn't get the question. The totoaba?
Yeah, when you show the gathering of those nets, are you trying to increase that group? Because there's no market if you don't catch them. So what are you doing on getting more manpower and pulling those nets out of the water?
No, so our organization is not involved with net removal. That's
Right.
Sea Shepherd.
Right.
And as every single anti-poaching activity in the world, anti-poaching does not address the problem, it just buys time. That's what is anti-poaching is about, keeping the animal alive for a little bit more. Doesn't matter if it's totoaba vaquita, doesn't matter if it's a rhino, an elephant, or a tiger. It's very important to do anti-poaching, it's very important to do net removal, but they just buy time, just like delaying the inevitable. At the same time, you have to go to the root of the problem and try to, it's like right now, and it's not just the vaquita, right now it's like you have to see at these places as Earth, as entity with cancer, okay? They have a very serious cancer. And we are taking care of them by putting cold stuff on the front, giving a little bit of IV, tell them eat vitamins, but they will die if you do just that with someone with cancer. Someone has to get inside the body and get rid of the cancer. And that's difficult, understand. That's why there are very few organizations. But so anti-poaching is critical to keep the animal alive, but is not enough. So it's as long as one single totoaba is $5,000, they will do whatever they can to put more and more nets. Every single net is $5,000. So the fishermen cannot afford the nets. It's someone else putting the money for the nets. There are millions of dollars of gill nets right now in Sea of Cortez all over. And there's only, Sea Shepherd did a great job, but, they remove nets, and then the night after they put a new one, and they do like this. And don't get me wrong, the reason why the vaquita is still alive is probably Sea Shepherd, because they kept removing nets. But in the past 5-6 years, the vaquita went from 120 individuals to 15. So you see the point. So you are delaying with anti-poaching, so great. But if you're just delaying, as I always say, I personally, I'm not in the business of delaying anything. I'm not in the business of buying time. I don't care if because of anti-poaching, rhino will get extinct in I don't know, in 10 years instead of 15. I don't care. I go back doing whatever I was doing before. You have to go to the root of the cancer with the right tools. And the cancer are international traffickers. They are the cancer. They fuel the demand, they set the price, they place the orders, they make it available on consumer, they do the whole thing. Doesn't matter if it's totoaba, rhino, doesn't matter, it's the same MO.
Can I pull on that thread just for a moment? The traffickers are clearly part of that problem. What about the end users?
Consumers.
The consumers. So the public pressure that you folks are doing a fabulous job of, what about putting that in the market in China? They're a huge consumer of all sorts of endangered species.
So in China, what we need, what the earth needs, is a full generational change. Okay. Before that, nothing will change. Okay. They are getting better. Also, law enforcement is getting better. They're a little bit more aware. But I don't know if you're familiar with China. I'm very familiar with China. they have every single contraband that you can imagine, from microchips to organs. They have it at a scale that we cannot imagine. So I understand why it's not a priority. But the problem is that consumers keep buying. It's part of their DNA. It's part of the tradition. They are not influenced at all by awareness campaigns and billboards. The young ones, yes, the young ones are different. There's the new hope. But the current buyers, they don't care. In China, you're scared of only one thing: law enforcement. That's the only one. So that's what we are asking. And that's what the Chinese are actually good in that. If they don't like something, they usually get rid of it overnight. So it's just not a priority. So our combined work is to make it a priority and to let them understand that the world cares about these things, so they should care as well.
I would like to add something, if you hear me. We have, we did this other film together also with Earth League International, the Ivory Game. And what was fantastic was that the Ivory Game, all they talked about was, and all Andrea talked about in the film, the only person who can save the elephants is the Chinese president. Because he needs to order the entire trade of ivory to be illegal in China. Only 2 months after our movie came out, we got word from China that they're responding very well to the movie, that there will be a big announcement to be made before the end of the year. And then on December 30th, the Chinese government announced a complete ban of ivory in China, which was for us unbelievable. And 2 days later, on January 2nd, they invited us to open the film at the Beijing Film Festival, flew us in as VIPs, and then we even won the festival, and they thanked us for making such a great film that shows what is truly happening with the elephants. Many people in China believed, believe it or not, that the elephants just shed their tusks, that they just fall off like antlers. They weren't aware that they are being slaughtered. And this really worked because it emotionally touched them. So this really encouraged us to try again, and this time, to focus our attention on the vaquita. It was actually Leonardo DiCaprio, our executive producer of the Ivory Game, who had the idea to do this film on the vaquita. And when I heard him say, "Can you help us with the vaquita and the totoaba?" I was like, "Excuse me, could you repeat that again?" Because I'd never heard about these two animals before in my life. I was like, what? So then, as we went in, now we're trying the same strategy. What was super interesting, though, is that in June 2018, Earth League International sent a report to the Chinese government about all the Chinese traffickers, not only in Mexico, but in China. What is not in the film is that we had a whole investigation going in southern China, Guangzhou. We filmed there. We filmed in Hong Kong, in Guangzhou province, Shantou, Fuzhou, all these areas, and we exposed the totoaba trade in China as well. We had a whole, we filmed even how they mapped out the entire trade network in China, and all that information, though, didn't make the film, simply because we realized throughout our own investigation that the focus has to be on Mexico in this one, which goes back to what Sharon said, because we are out of time. The Chinese cannot save the vaquitas in China, because to change the demand and to educate people will take a generation. These people are not easily educated, and totoaba trade is already illegal in China. So there was no demand, there was no ask to the Chinese government other than to crack down on the syndicate. And 6 months after Andrea delivered his report, there came a massive arrests, 3 months of arrests. The first came in December, more in January, then again in March of 2019, totaling 32 traffickers behind bars of totoaba, which was unbelievable. And we know that people in our network were taken down. So, I always say ours because I feel so closely associated with Andrea's work, but it's what they did. So the Chinese have done their part, and we're out of time for a whole campaign that will take 10, 15, 20 years, to change the mindset. We need to focus on Mexico. This is why we're talking mostly about the Mexican government, because the time is now and they need to do their job in the next 8 months, or it's all over for the vaquita and the Sea of Cortez.
Okay, we're going to do 2 questions, 1, 2, and then we're going to have to let him go eat breakfast.
Thank you for the risk you're taking and the amazing work you're doing. It's pretty phenomenal. I know you're not in it for the money, that's for sure. It's really about saving the planet, making a difference. I'm wondering, is there a proactive approach to helping vaquita? I don't know. I think I saw, it looked like one possibly had a tag on it. Like they tag sharks all the time to study their migration habits and figure out what their environments are, or breeding habits and things of that nature. I'm wondering, has there been any analysis on that? And if there were, so maybe there would be some other alternative methods to help their survival.
Well, as far as we know, the scientists have all the information they could possibly have on the vaquitas. I mean, they are the most elusive and the rarest marine mammals on Earth. But for example, Lorenzo Bracha, who's in the film, who's the guy who kind of brought Cynthia Smith to Mexico to run vaquita CPR, they call him Mr. Vaquita. All he's been doing for the last 30 years is study the vaquitas in Mexico. So they know as much as they can. They even know where exactly they're located, where their breeding grounds are. But all they say is the only thing we can do is leave them alone and keep those nets out of their way. I mean, with like less than 15 animals, that's the only thing. They tried removing them into like a sanctuary. Obviously, as you all saw, that doesn't work. It's not worth risking even another go, because what if another one dies? I mean, when you're down to numbers like that, you may kill a breeding female or something. I mean, they cannot touch them anymore. Like, they can't come even too close to them. They need to be kept in peace. So that's what they keep saying. The nets have to stay out of the water. The market has to be destroyed. The demand has to be destroyed in Mexico. Chinese traffickers need to be scared. We are talking, by the way, to the Mexican government as well. At CITES, at this meeting in August at the United Nations, there was a Mexican delegation from the Mexican Fish and Wildlife was in Geneva, and they saw the film, and they requested a meeting. And I'll never forget how this one guy, Antonio Diaz de Leon is his name, stood up and said, thank you for showing us this film. I cannot believe I had to wait 8 months since I took office to finally see the problem, understand the threats, and also understand how we can solve this. And so he thanked me for this film, requested a meeting. Then we had a 2-hour meeting where I presented Earthling International's intelligence briefing to him, which he had never seen before, because the previous government that we talked to, they put it under the carpet. Exactly what you were afraid of, Andrea. That's what they did. They just buried it because they were going out of office. A new government was coming in December 2018, and this new government just hasn't been briefed, and they haven't been passed on that information. So we gave them the information, and we've been in touch with them. Andrea also, of course, knows very well the man, and we've been in touch with them and exchanging information, and they are now targeting the Chinese. They want to go after them, but it is very sensitive. We understand there is hesitation. They're checking with the Chinese government what they will do if they arrest Chinese citizens, but then they're not Chinese citizens, they're actually Mexican citizens. So what we heard a few weeks ago is that China has given the consent. If these are criminals, they're in your country, take them down. We have done our part, now it's your turn. So they're encouraged, we're encouraged by this, but we need action, which brings me back to Andrea's work. If we cannot verify what's actually happening, then it's just talk, unfortunately.
Final question, Simon.
I was wondering what other prospects there were for changing the way things are in Mexico. For example, what sort of investment would be required to rebalance the local economy so that it was uneconomic to actually poach the fish?
So Richard knows my personal opinion. From a crime perspective, as long as this fish is $5,000 a piece, you can open a Club Med tomorrow in San Felipe. Nothing will change because it's $5,000 a piece. So first, you have to destroy the chain, the supply chain, or at least rebalance. And at the same time, of course, it's a poor local community. They make $600 per month usually from shrimps or corvina. So it's the classic fisherman community in those kind of country. But this is actually one of the mistakes of the past 10 years. Don't forget, American government, Mexican government, and NGOs spent more than $100 million in 10 years to save the vaquita. $100 million, this is the results. Why? Because they didn't focus on crime. They just start either hammering on the heads of the fishermen, and they are just poor Christians, and they want to make a living and whatever, or thinking, okay, we have to solve poverty, we have to give them alternative fishing gears, and all important things. But as long as this fish is $5,000 a piece, you will not change anything. Because criminals are not stupid, and they, imagine there are people coming to fish Totoaba from all over Mexico, not even fishermen. Of course, it's gold swimming in the water. Of course, I would do the same if I was. So, first crime, my opinion, and then you can work on, of course, on the local population to make a better life for them.
Which brings us back to the role of the government, because as you see in the film, they have a very strong presence of Marines there. They have helicopters and gunships and a Marine base. 300 soldiers are stationed in San Felipe any given day because they have a big base there. So it's not just about the big problem is they're pretending to go after the criminals. That's the $100 million that Andrea talked about. A lot of that money also went into keeping those soldiers based in San Felipe and keeping those helicopters going and their ships and operations. It's very expensive to run something like that. The thing is, though, that we saw the laws are weak. If you are arrested with a gill net and you have been fishing illegally inside the Vaquita Refuge, all you're given is a small fine. It's a few $100s. They may confiscate your engine, but it's not serious. It's not a serious offense. Like, you're not going to prison, which is a big problem because this is as big as the cocaine trade. They call it the cocaine of the sea for a reason. There's millions of dollars involved, and there is, people are dying. They're being executed. As you see in the film, the poor fisherman who was executed because he stood up against the cartel and openly talked about it. So as long as people are not, held accountable and they are not kept in prison and not like, for example, if you kill an elephant in like an African country, for example, South Africa or something, you go to jail for 5 to 10 years. So this should be the law. If you go in and you fish Totoaba, there should be serious consequences, which again is, government, like only the government can do that, can enforce the law in a way. And, we have to have judges who sentence people for a long time so that there is a deterrent. How do we do that? Pressure. More and more pressure and public opinion that, creates a movement of change.
Okay, I have one suggestion because I'm still not clear. I think we all here actually can help fix this problem right now. If you could send to me solutions that we can send to all the people that are here, websites to go to, how to donate, who to contact, we'll send that out to our global SNS membership, and we'll make a change, okay? So I really want it to be clear, and I'm not clear about, and I don't know, maybe you guys all are, but we can make something happen here. Send me the information, and we will send it out to our full membership. Okay.
After breakfast, Richard.
Yes.
Richard, thank you
problem.
for being up so early with us.
Well, thank you so much. for being
Andrea.
here. Yeah, the man.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you all for caring so much about the world like we do. Have a nice evening.